Welcome in, everyone, to another edition of the GSMC College Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, as always, Tommy Brzee. It is January 3rd, finally 2025. Happy New Year to everyone out there, but... We have a great show to start the new year for you. We're going to get to all of the quarterfinal games. We'll start with the Texas and Ohio State game, get to those first. Two incredible games in Atlanta and in Pasadena, especially that one over in Atlanta. Not without a little bit of controversy, and we'll get to that. Then we'll talk about Penn State and Notre Dame, getting pretty comfortable wins. Notre Dame had to worry just a little bit longer than Penn State did in this one, but really remarkable games from both of them, and they will end up meeting up down there in Miami. Then we'll take that early look at those semifinal games, Texas-Ohio State in Dallas, as well as Notre Dame, Penn State down there in Miami. We'll get to a little of a bowl season recap. The SEC is starting to falter just a little bit. A lot of things to talk about around that, and we'll get into a little bit more detail next week for sure. And then we'll do a little bit of a weekend roundup. Transfer portal news, coaching carousel news, all that type of stuff. Want to make sure that's on y'all's radar before we get out of here for the week. But before we jump in, I do want to remind you all we get tons of questions and comments throughout the show, and the best way for you all to get your question on the screen, we can have fun back and forth here, is to use that super chat. At the bottom of the chat on the Sports Network page, you can click that $, add any question, comment you like. It'll pop up on the screen, and we can have fun back and forth here. Definitely want this to be as interactive as possible, so utilize that. We can have fun back and forth and ask any questions you like. And I have to assume some people will have some questions about this first game. Texas-Arizona State was absolutely insane. It went down to the wire a couple of different times, and Texas found a way to get away with one. Andrew Makuba makes a great play on the ball in double overtime, gives them the pick, they win the game, and what a performance from Cam Skattebo, what a performance from Quinn Ewers to finish off that game. This is what the CFP was meant to give us. It was meant to give us a team in Arizona State that, going into this game, was the biggest spread of the entire of all the games this upcoming week, and you were looking down the barrel saying, they probably can't keep up with Texas too much, at least not for 4 quarters. And they went out there and they battled. They battled incredibly, incredibly hard, and usually I'd start with the winner. Usually I'd start talking about Texas and what they did in this game and what they did well, what they did poorly, and there was plenty of both, but I got to start with Cam Skattebo. He was the most incredible player in this game, ran for 143 and 2 scores, was the leading receiver with 8 catches and 99 yards, including that huge one down the sideline, threw for a touchdown of 42 yards. He was everything. And in that 42-yard touchdown pass, sounds like it was designed to go back to Sam Levitt. Sam Levitt got a little bit injured the play before. Cam Skattebo said, I'll throw it, and he threw it perfectly. It was absolutely insane. Remarkable performance from him. Sam Levitt fought his butt off during that game, got away from pressure just about every single down. Didn't necessarily have the best statistical day, but I came away thinking much higher of Sam Levitt than I did going in. Remarkable player, fought incredibly hard in this game, and ran probably about 10 miles without running forward very much. So really remarkable game from him. Both these players, just incredible guys. Incredible kids, incredible players, and definitely guys that have kind of set Arizona State off on this path. And we'll have plenty of time to really get into what the future holds for Arizona State, because I think it could get really special down there in Tempe. But this game was everything that they are all season. They fought really hard. Cam Skattebo made every single play you could possibly want him to make. They came up just a little bit close in overtime, and there were a lot of different reasons for that. Now, the big reason why they were even in overtime is Texas has a third quarter issue. There's no doubt about that. They had 10 total yards. They got outscored 5-0 with that safety in that third quarter. They have some issues, and they have to figure it out. It comes down to a little bit of play calling with Steve Sarkisian pushing the ball downfield at some weird moments during this game, one leading to that pick on Quinn Ewers, and then a lot of it just has to do with their inability to run the ball. They went for 1.8 yards per carry in this game, couldn't get any rhythm going running the ball, and when you can't do that, Quinn Ewers is not going to be all that effective until the final 5 minutes of this game, apparently. Quinn Ewers went 11 for 14, 160 yards, 2 scores in 5 minutes in last 5 minutes of the game and overtime. Remarkable game from Quinn Ewers towards the end of this game. Definitely had some shaky moments early, but overall, you throw 16 passes in the first 55 minutes of the game, then you throw 14 in the last 5 minutes in overtime. You're probably more likely to do a little bit more better with the rhythm when you get to those last 14. So overall, really incredible game from him. He took over when they absolutely needed it, especially on that 4th and 13. Incredible ball, an incredible route run by Matthew Golden, incredible pickup by the offensive line, which Quinn Ewers has a lot to do with as well. So really remarkable game, really remarkable finish from him, but Texas has some things they have to figure out when it comes to that third quarter and just letting teams back in games that they probably have no business being in. They were up 16 points, and then you see Arizona State just slowly start to claw their way back in. Texas allowed them to do that, so they got to figure that stuff out, and we got to talk about this. This is obviously the thing that kind of take Twitter by storm during this game. A lot of people very, very angry about this one, and I fully understand that. It should have been targeting. I'm not here to tell you that it wasn't targeting. I'm not here to, argue one way or the other. What I will say is there are two things that I've seen online that I just don't agree with in any way. One is ASU lost this game because of this play. Two is it was rigged for Texas. I understand that this was a huge play. Arizona State would have kept the drive going. They possibly would have had a chance to kick a field goal. The possible part of that is why they didn't lose this game because of this. They had plenty of chances after this game, or after this play, including that 4th and 13 where you just knock the ball down, you win the game. So this is not why Arizona State lost. It did have a huge effect on the game. I'm not here to tell you that it didn't. Definitely was not necessarily rigged for Texas either. That's another thing that I've seen out there. I saw plenty of missed calls on both sides of the field in this one, including that Isaiah Bond play. If this one is targeting, I would argue that one is targeting as well. So it's a battle back and forth. I understand this was a huge play. I understand it's going to get a lot of different publicity, but overall, I really don't think that this one was the most egregious, or might have been the worst call of the day. I'm not necessarily saying it wasn't. I was saying there was a ton of missed calls throughout this game. I think this referee crew probably should stay pretty far away from the semifinal games if I had to imagine, but overall, I don't think this was the defining play of this game. I don't think it lost Arizona State the game. I do think it hurt them quite a bit, and I do think it probably should have been called, along with a lot of different things that probably should have been called in this game. So overall, this refereeing crew probably just shouldn't be around the semifinal games, and we should probably find a way to figure out what is targeting and what isn't, because I don't think anyone knows, including the referees on the field. That's a huge problem, and we'll talk about that definitely next week at some point. But overall, really incredible game, an awesome finish where at the end of the game, Quinn Ewers was just the best guy on the field. He made every single play you needed to make. He made the huge throw on 4th and 13, followed it right up with a touchdown to Gunnar Helm, threw some great balls to Matthew Golden throughout this game, who was downright remarkable, becoming the best player on that Texas offense. So really good stuff from both teams. Remarkable stuff what Arizona State did, and where they go from here, I think I can't express how much I love Kenny Dillingham, how much I love this Arizona State team, and how much I think they're capable of. They left everything out on that field. They left every single play call, every single piece of vomit they had, every single energy they had in this game. They left out there on the field. That is what playoff games are about. They knew physically they were a little bit overmatched in this game. Now, their defensive line played incredibly well, and huge amount of respect to them. Definitely something we need to talk about with Texas going forward, but overall, they knew they were a little bit outmatched. They pulled out a fake punt. They pulled out, different fake, the halfback pass. They pulled out so many different things that they left everything out there. And this is a program that not only can dominate the Big 12 over the next little bit, but can dominate on the national scale for a little bit and over the next couple of years, because there's some special talent over there in Arizona. And then Texas, this was just avoiding disaster. There's no doubt about that. This game probably should have ended in regulation. 2 chances to win it with a field goal. You miss them both. You have the pick with 5 minutes to go. A lot of issues. And they're going to have to play worlds better if they're going to want to beat this team, who, oh my goodness, if this is not the best team in the country, I don't know who is. Because the reality is, when Will Howard is playing that level, this team is going to beat everyone by 14 points. They're going to roll to a national title, and we're going to look back saying, how did they lose that Michigan game? But that's just what the game is about. That's what that game is kind of built off of, is you never know what to expect. But overall, really remarkable game from Ohio State, and it was this guy. You have to imagine that it was going to be number 4, 7 catches, 187 yards, 2 scores. He's not only the best wide receiver in the country, he might be the very best player in the country going into 2025. He is an outright alien. We probably should check his DNA to see if he's actually human, but he does not abide by normal physics. He's an absolute freak, and he's someone that, if you wanted to draft him, I'd draft him number 1 overall. I'd go ahead and fit him for a golden jacket, because you're just going to have to hold it for another 15 years, and then he'll be ready to put it on. This kid is absolutely ridiculous, and the fact that we get him for another 2 years in college football is just an absolute treat. But he wasn't the only one that had an incredible day. This defensive line for Ohio State got after him pretty much from start to finish. 8 sacks, 13 tackles for loss for this Ohio State defense, 5.8 yards per carry. remarkable stuff. The O-line did show a couple more holes than they did against Tennessee, but overall, really remarkable stuff from this offensive and defensive line, and they won the place that they won in the Tennessee game, and people were pretty surprised in the trenches. They were able to do it again against Oregon. But the mentality of this team is probably the biggest thing that has stood out for me, because you look at what this team is capable of. The talent on the field is undeniable. It is the most talented team in the country. It is the team that has two of the best wide receivers in the country, two of the best running backs, one of the better quarterbacks, really, really talented players all across the field, and they're ready to rip people to pieces. They are ready to take their foot all the way off the brake, put it all the way on the gas, and just tear people apart. And they really can do that. And the biggest part of that is Will Howard. He's playing incredibly good football, and probably playing the best football that I've seen him play in his career. Had over 300 yards, 3 scores in this game. Definitely been the best quarterback in the playoffs thus far. But for Oregon, it's a really tough way to end a remarkable season. There's no doubt about that. They've played really, really good football this year. They've been the most consistent team in the country. They ran into a buzzsaw. There's really no other way to put it. And obviously, brings into question the CFP format. I think they got a little bit hurt by the way that this thing shook out, and we'll definitely be talking about that a little bit more. Frankly, I think these last couple of weeks have almost ensured that we're going to go to a 16-team playoff at some point here pretty soon, so we'll talk about that likely next week, get into a little bit more detail, but definitely something where Oregon just ran into the wrong team at the wrong time. This Ohio State team is going to be incredibly hard to stop. Even if Texas plays their A-plus football, they could still lose this game by 10 points. So it's not necessarily anything against Oregon. It was not their day. As Dan Lanning said it was definitely Ohio State's day, and as Dan Lanning said, it wasn't against Michigan. So just one of those things, and definitely a tough ending to just a remarkable season for Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks. But this Ohio State team is different in every sense of the word. We knew it coming into the season that they might just have a little bit more talent, a little bit more ability across their team than pretty much anyone else in the country. We saw it from the defense for about the entire year. They're one of the best defenses in the country. They might be facing the best defense in the country here pretty soon, but overall, we didn't really see it from the offense. It was a little bit inconsistent, a little bit all over the place, and came down to Will Howard, came down to play calling in a lot of ways. Now Ryan Day and Chip Kelly are letting it rip. Now Will Howard's letting it rip, and it's going to be a terrifying unit to face the rest of the way. Right now, if they play at that level, they're going to be your national champions. I feel fairly confident in that. But where they go from here, I think Oregon, it's still a program growing. I understand it's been a frustrating end to the last couple of years, but Dan Lanning is building this team. They're getting more talented every single year. I don't know what the quarterback situation will be in 2025. I don't know if they'll go get a portal guy. I don't know if they'll roll with Dante Moore, but this is a team that is not going anywhere. I can almost promise you that. This defense is only going to get better next year, and Dan Lanning is going to get that offense in the right place. I think Oregon's still on the right track. Obviously, it was a very, very tough day, but remarkable team still heading very much in the right direction. For Ohio State, you're off to Dallas and just continue to be in attack mode. That's the reality of this situation. If Ohio State and Will Howard just continue to attack defenses over and over and over again, especially to number 4, they're going to have a lot of success. They're going to win the national title, and they might just win it by a comfortable margin, if I'm being totally honest with you. This team is, if they play at that level, is far and away the best team in this tournament, and they were far and away the best team on that field a couple of days ago. So, remarkable games from these two teams. That Texas game had a little bit of controversy. There's no doubt about that. I understand that. Definitely was not the call that I would have gone with. There were a couple of calls that I would have gone differently from them. So a lot of different things to talk about with those two games, but let's move forward. Let's take our first break and let's talk about the Penn State and Notre Dame games. Really remarkable games, two games that both teams relatively handled their business, moved on about their day, and they get to meet down there in Miami. But let's talk about those games right after this, so stick with us.